Hey everyone, welcome back to part 3 of the PA School series. This part is all about how to crush the PA School interview process. Part 1, if you haven't seen it already, it's how to choose the right program. Take a look at that video. Part 2 was how to become a competitive applicant. Part 3 here is how to crush the interview process. So if you're not a PA student or not interested in becoming a PA, this isn't really the right video for you. That's okay. We're going to get right back to our urgent care stories in the next week. But right now, this is for people who are pre-PA, ready to become a PA, and they've been accepted for an interview offer at a program. First of all, congratulations if you are in that situation. You are well on your way. You've already beat out 95% of the applicants each year. Every program has a different approach to the interview process. I interviewed at 7 different programs, and so I got to see a wide variety of what is out there. It is usually a 1 or 2 day ordeal. Part 1 is usually a tour of the facility. They have the faculty and somebody from the financial aid office come in and explain how the course works. So they say, this is what your curriculum looks like. These are our first time PANCE pass rates. This is our accreditation status. This is how much the school costs. This is when you're eligible for in-state versus out-of-state. This is how long we've been a program. These are what we feel the strengths of the program are, that sort of stuff. Then they usually have some first and second year PA students who meet with you, the applicants, and they kind of answer questions that you have about the program. And then you start to get into the interview processes. Now, I had a couple schools that had like a very intense group interview process where it was like 6 PA students and faculty and then 10 of us applicants, and for 3 hours straight they would go one by one down the row asking you extremely difficult interview process questions like, explain to me a time where you were emotionally traumatized at work and how did you gain knowledge from that and how did you handle it? Or explain a time where you had a disagreement with a colleague and how did you approach that? Or, you know, a number of questions that you just had to pull out of your ass. You didn't know what you were doing. And that was an extremely stressful process. If that is the program that you're interviewing with, good luck. That's all I can say, because it was all on your feet, thinking on the spot. You didn't get the same question as the person before you, so good luck. I don't have any help with that. It's just rough. Good news is that that's not most programs. Most programs are going to have a group interview process. So the way that the group interviews work is you and 5 or 6 other applicants will go into a room with a faculty member of the program. They will give you a question prompt, and then you guys are all expected to talk about that question or that topic for 5 to 10 minutes, and that is the group interview. This is a process that I was involved in on the interviewer side as well, and so I got to grade students who are in this process. And what I can tell you is they're just trying to weed out the extremes of one end or the other. So the people who are quiet and not talking the whole time, or the people who are overpowering, very confrontational, kind of really intense on the other side. If you can be somewhere in the middle, that is the best place to be. There's a couple of tricks that I recommend for people, and it really makes you look very classy at the end of the day. So the first technique is when they hand out the prompt to everybody, they're going to say, oh, you know, you can all read it together, or, you know, one person can read it for you guys, whatever you want to do, and then they leave it up to you. Well, a lot of people usually do this, but you can say, hey, I'm happy to read it for everybody. That shows you have initiative. That shows you can take a leadership role pretty well. But a lot of people try to jump on that. So you don't need to try to push for it, but if nobody's stepping up, that's definitely an opportunity to show that you have some good personality traits there. The next area that I recommend is watch and listen to some of the people in your group. Let's say that the question prompt, I think the one that I was given when I was interviewing was, do you think that a medical provider should have the capability to take away firearms from somebody's house? There's no right or wrong answer to this. They just want to have you explain your side. So some people would say, oh yeah, I absolutely think that's great. I think that it's, you know, to save a life, to keep somebody from killing somebody or harming somebody else. I think that that's a good thing. The other side was saying, no, like that's violating their Second Amendment rights. I think that people have the right to keep and bear arms, and that should not need to be infringed upon by anybody. So I have my own personal statements or personal opinions on that, but that was kind of the prompt. So I sat back and I listened to a couple different people talking about what they thought. And then I was looking for somebody in the group who was really quiet, who looked nervous, who hadn't said anything yet. I jumped into the conversation. I said something that I felt was true to me and what I believed. And then I turned it on to that person and I said, hey, Sarah, what do you think about this? That way, Sarah has an opportunity to jump into the conversation and she can share her thoughts, and the interviewers can see that I am trying to include everybody into the conversation. That is a really classy move to make you look good for the interview process. I can tell you, hands down, every time I interviewed a group, they had at least 1 or 2 students who didn't say a single word the entire time. It is really hard to grade you. And if I can't grade you, I'm going to give you a poor score. So you gotta say something, okay? I know it's nerve-wracking, I know you're nervous, but say something, put something out there into the conversation, be involved somehow, okay? Those are some 2 advices that I have there. The next thing is the one-on-one interviews. So you have 1 group interview, and then you usually have 1 to 3 one-on-one interviews. These are you with a faculty member, the head of the department, some of the faculty, maybe some different people that are practicing PAs who they brought in to help interview. And that's going to be more of your traditional interview. So for that, I always recommend having your standard questions rehearsed, practiced, perfected. So why do you want to be a PA? Why don't you want to be a doctor? Why don't you want to be a nurse practitioner? What do you feel your strengths are? What do you feel your weaknesses are? All of those sorts of questions. If they ask that to you, you should be able to just give them a straight answer, well rehearsed, that sounds very polished. They expect that though, so they might only ask you 1 or 2 of those questions. They might say, hey, so why do you want to be a PA? Okay, great. Why don't you want to be a doctor? Okay, great. And then they're going to ask you some random questions. So they might say, if you were a color, which color would you be and why? If you were a superhero, which superhero would you be and why? What was the most recent book you read? Or, you know, tell me something profound that you've had happen within the past 12 months. And, you know, they just want to ask you things that you're not prepared for to see how you think on the spot. My favorite story, this isn't related to PA school, but I had a colleague who was a physical therapist who, during his interview process, he had the interviewer ask him who was General Hirohito and what impact did he have in the U.S. involvement in World War II. That is a very specific question to ask. My friend said, well, I would imagine that General Hirohito was probably the general or admiral who ordered the attack on Pearl Harbor, which thus took the U.S. into a more active role during World War II. And the interviewer said, wrong, it's not it. And he said, but I like that you didn't give up. And when he told that story, I thought, wow, what a cool way to get to how likely is somebody to give up. Because so many people, if you ask them that question, they could go, oh, I don't know. Who is General Hirohito? Please tell me. But this guy, he tried to take a stab at it. He was asked to answer a question, and he took his best guess at what it was. And that shows some initiative, and that shows that he's not just going to give up. He's going to try to find a way. And that really stuck with me, and I really remember that story, and I think it's a great lesson to remember when you're interviewing. Some things that I would recommend when you're interviewing is they are going to ask you, do you have any questions for the program? I would ask a couple of questions to all the people who are there, but don't phrase your questions in a way that's confrontational. So instead of saying, why should I come to your program, or what do you feel makes your program so great, you could phrase that as, what is the thing that you're most proud of about your program? That's a much more positive way to ask the same type of question. But be careful about some of the ways that you phrase things, because it can put off the wrong kind of vibe or the wrong energy to the interviewer, and that can kind of hurt you a little bit. The other thing that I would look for is I would ask maybe where they'd like to see the program within the next 3 to 5 years, what made them want to come to this program, stuff like that. Another great way that you can interview or talk with them is you could ask them about themselves personally. So what do you like to do for fun? Why did you become a PA? What specialties have you worked in, and what's been your favorite? You know, what made you want to transition into academia instead of practicing? You know, everyone loves to talk about themselves. It's really easy to talk about yourself. And the interviewer is probably nervous just like you are. So if you can ask them questions, it gets them talking, it gets them opening up. I've had some friends that when they interviewed, they ended up just talking about dogs for the full 10 minutes. And when you leave the one-on-one interview, the person, when they look back and they think, oh, should we accept this person to our school? They're not going to remember, man, this guy had an amazing answer to why he wants to be a PA. They're going to say, oh yeah, that was the guy who asked me about my dogs, and we talked about, you know, all these different things, and that was such a fun conversation. Like, that's going to really stick in their mind, and that's going to give you those brownie points that you want. So ask them questions about themselves personally, make it fun, make it a relaxed environment too. Try not to do the whole bragging about yourself too much. Like, they've seen your resume, they know what you have to bring to the table. They now just want to get to know your personality, and you don't need to brag about yourself to show your personality, okay? That's kind of the recommendations that I would say. I would have those couple of questions just saved, you know, things that you want to look up. Try not to ask them like, oh, things that like, oh, how do you guys do your rotations? Because I guarantee you can find that on their website. So do a thorough look through the website, and if there are questions that you can't answer for yourself on their website, those are the questions you should bring up to them. But that's the best advice I can give you guys. Every interview process is different. If you can find somebody who is a mentor to you, who can put you through your paces to try to do a couple of practice interviews, I think that's going to be very helpful for you. There are a ton of books about how to do the PA school interview, right responses, bad responses, stuff like that. I think they're good resources to look through. Practicing in the mirror, just practicing giving a response to questions is very helpful. So that is my series on PA school, guys. I hope that this information is helpful for you. If you like this kind of content, leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up on the video. It really helps me just share with other people, and please share this with other future PA students that you think would help with this. I appreciate all your time, and I appreciate y'all watching. Have a great day.